Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
Fellas, you know why I love mandatory minicamp? Because it's one step closer to training camp.
Because everybody has to show up. That's why.
One step closer to preseason, one step closer to all of us shouting, football is back. We're back on Bucs Bonus, the exclusive video podcast of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. Welcome into the WFLA Now Stream Center, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Your Bucs Insiders, Dan Lucas, and for the first time on the show, can we hear it?
Yeah.
Kenny Morales.
And this isn't mandatory. This is voluntary.
Yeah.
A voluntary workout.
Came here
for Kenny.
by choice. Yeah,
Right.
you're welcome.
Full disclosure, our wives are good friends.
Well, they are, yeah.
And if there are people watching live right now and they see Ashley or Devin in the comments section, they are biased because yes, they are the wives of Kenny and I. We're good pals going back a long way. Kenny, it's great to have you on the program.
No, thank you, man. I'm excited to join. We've been talking about this off camera for a while, so glad we finally get to do it.
Yeah, and I know that, Dan, there's a lot to talk about these days in the world of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but overall, other than it being scorching hot out there, how's minicamp this year for the Bucs?
Surface of the sun, a preview of training camp, literally, figuratively. I think the Bucs accomplished everything they could for a springtime offseason program. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, integrated the tweaks, if you will, from the Dave Canales offense and Liam Cohen. The big thing we heard about the offense through the spring was this is a little bit more cerebral, a little more thinking involved, and it's not particularly everyone. It's more on Baker that's going to have, I wouldn't necessarily say options, but more responsibilities that a quarterback with his contract should be able to handle. And so it's going to have, and when it gets into games, if this works and Baker is thinking properly, he will have different options during plays. Part of it, one hand, is to be more successful down the field. The other part's to limit the running he had to do last year, which was exciting, but we choose life here, Kenny. we want Baker to live.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The less running, the better for him. It's exciting, like you said, but I think you'd rather protect your $100 million quarterback.
Yes.
So let's focus on Baker, because I want to ask you guys about Baker, and I'm gonna look. It's my job to ask questions. These are the insiders. I'm just here to ask tough questions. And is there any chance of a sophomore slump, a regression of any kind for Baker, given the fact Dave Canales goes to Carolina and Baker's now sitting on a cushy paycheck versus last year when he was like, look, this might be his last real shot at a starting gig. That was the optics coming into the season after, of course, going to Carolina, things not working out there, having a brief stint of success with the Rams, and then coming to Tampa Bay. So how big is the spotlight, Dan, right now?
This is the next step in something he needs to overcome, and that's his reputation and his history as an NFL quarterback. When he came here last year, it was met with laughter by a lot of the pundits and the national media, that he was just going to come here and be a failure. Well, he bet on himself, and we now know what the results were. So now the reward came in that long-term contract, and the Bucs have essentially handed him the keys here for a couple of seasons minimum. And so that's the next step for him. How do I handle success? Something he could not do when he got to his second contract. In Cleveland, he had success, could not ride that out. These are all part of the In my conversations with Baker, this is all part of a maturation that we've all witnessed it, his career from Oklahoma to this point, but he is keeping a lot of things inside now. He's not as brash as he used to be. He's very confident for sure, but he's not in your face about it. He has really grown up here, and this is the time in his life and his age when being an NFL starting quarterback is probably the right thing for him. So I don't think he messes this up. That's basically what the outsiders are thinking. They're waiting for Baker to screw this up, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I can understand why people think that because, like you mentioned, Never got past that first contract in Cleveland. And really, he's never really had back-to-back seasons like he just did, right? He had one solid season like he just had in Cleveland, right? Yep. And that kind of got the hype about him, going even higher. But like you mentioned, I think you talk about maturation. I think a little bit of humility as well. I mean, after you go through the things that he just went through, where you were the #1 pick, you were able to lead a franchise like Cleveland that was so hungry to win to its first playoff victory in however many decades, and then you get traded, you get cut a couple times. Now you're suddenly kind of down in your luck, and you're like, all right, you're kind of questioning yourself a little bit. But like you mentioned, the confidence is still there, but I think now with a little more maturity and a little more humility on his side, I think that's helped him grow as a quarterback.
And let's remember this, Kenny. Baker, when he was in free agency last year, he had options as well.
Yeah.
Say whatever you want about if he could lead a team or not, but there was a mutual choosing, if you will, from Bucs to Baker, and Baker chose the Bucs because he looked at what the Bucs had and saw a scenario that was going to allow him to have success. And I mean, he bought into the thing immediately. Mm-hmm. And when they got to the postseason, overcame a mid-season slump essentially. Got into the postseason, I think he finally saw the results of the process that he went through, and now he's ready to take that next step. I thought, he won a playoff game last year. Like you said, he had a playoff win in Cleveland. It'd be very easy to go, well, I came here, resurrected my career, I won a playoff game. I think he wants to go all the way to the end.
I think so too. And he was actually asked about it during mandatory minicamp. Is this the most talented roster you've had to work with in terms of just the offense? He said it's right up there. And he had a really good offensive squad when he had talking about OBJ, Jarvis Landry, all those guys, David Njoku. He's got some serious weapons on this team as well.
He had Nick Chubb there, too, running the ball there in Cleveland. So a lot of talent with those Cleveland teams. So, guys, chances that do you like the chance that he actually takes the next step? Should Bucs fans expect kind of, slow and steady wins the race, a consistent performance compared to last year, or is expecting the performance last year too much to ask of Baker, in your opinion?
I think it depends on how he, I won't say fits into the new offense, how he runs this offense. Liam Cohen brings a system that's very similar to the Dave Canales system. However, the tweaks, we've been told by Baker himself, require a lot more thinking for everyone, but mostly himself, the quarterback. Not necessarily options, but things he's going to have to do at the line of scrimmage, recognizing, I believe the audibles are considered in this as well. And then the route tree within a play, and all trying to limit his running, which became a little bit of a necessity last year at times. So if he operates within that, and we don't see this bravado thing, I think he's going to be terrific for the Bucs. I think this offense is going to be very good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about his chances of at least being able to replicate what he was able to do last year. Like Dan was mentioning, I think it just depends on how quickly he kind of picks this up. And everybody on that offense picks it up, because I believe it was Luke Kedeke we spoke to on the last day of minicamp, or maybe one of the other offensive linemen. But they said, look, while we have gotten a decent grasp of it, we're eons away from being like totally familiar with it. And you think they mentioned the offense last year. It took them several weeks to kind of get their footing with it and hit their stride. So when it comes to Baker and the offense, don't be surprised if a couple weeks in we're like, is this thing going to work? Like, what's going on? Is Liam Cohen the guy? Right? Don't be calling for Liam Cohen's head if by week 5 or 6 this thing is looking a little rough. Give him some time. We're
gonna look at the schedule here in a moment, but before we do, again, biggest takeaways from Bucs mandatory minicamp, of course, which is a major point. As Dan joked earlier, it's mandatory. You got to be there. It's a big point on the NFL calendar. But I want to ask, on the defensive side of the ball, Kenny, you and I were talking in the sports office before the show this afternoon, and I asked a very basic question, because I feel that to be successful in the NFL in this day and age, you have to be able to get after the quarterback. So for the Buccaneers, and for Todd Bowles, who's going to, of course, deploy a lot of creative schemes, who's that guy or guys that are going to be able to get after the quarterback? Dan, I know you're itching to highlight one guy.
He's got his answer, and I love his answer.
That you love, right?
Well, I probably steal Kenny's answer because the pass rush to me is going to be on Yaya this year. Yaya Diaby.
That's not the name I thought that
No,
you were
I
going to
know
go
exactly
with.
what you're
He did
thinking.
steal my answer.
Yeah, I stole Kenny's
But
answer.
how can you not pick him?
Yeah. What fascinates me about this pass rush is I think Yaya in year 2 will step in, be established, ready to go, and go to the next level. And he may bring Joe Tryon-Shoyinka with him, or he may not.
Wow.
And that's going to be the biggest question mark as we go in through camp and the preseason and get ready to go here. JTS, this is your time.
Now or never, buddy.
Shaq is not here.
Yeah.
You're going to be put in some prominent places here. Can you take advantage of this and do what they brought you here to do? And there's other pieces within that. Logan Hall has been asked to step up a little bit more his on the inside interior. But yeah, I'm going with Yaya. Sorry, Kenny.
No, it's
Wow,
okay.
It's funny because I thought that I got mixed up here. So Dan took the Kenny answer.
I
So
know.
you want to take the Dan answer that I was?
Kalijah Cansey was
That's
his
the one.
original
That's
answer
the
that I was
one.
thinking of. And I love that answer because I do like him a lot as a player, especially, I know the knock was on him coming out of the draft was that he's undersized, but he's incredibly quick for his position.
Right.
And if he can stay healthy, and that was kind of the knock, was that he came into the season, I believe the Vikings game, right? He kind of tweaked something. If he can stay healthy the entire year, I think he can put up some big numbers. But I'm also going to go with another inside guy. How about Vita Vea? I know you don't get a lot of sack production from the guys on the inside of the D-line, but Vita Vea did lose some weight.
Slim down Vita.
I don't know if 320 slimmed down now. That's but slimmed down for him. I mean, he was 340 something last year. He's down to about 320 now. And I think last year he finished with 5.5 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, which was 3rd or 4th on the team. Maybe that's good for another 1 or 2 or 3 sacks. He also missed a couple games. So if he can stay on the field as well, maybe he flirts with 8-9 sacks.
I'm checking here. He is listed on the Buccaneers website, buccaneers.com, as 347 pounds with 5.5 sacks.
He was playing over
year.
360 almost last year. He was much heavier
insane.
last year. But gone are the days of the big body run stopping. Now that's still expected. But when Vita was lined up next to Ndamukong Suh, things were different. And Suh was kind of on the back end of his dominance, where he used to be. Well, I'll go ahead and say it. Kalijah Cansey can have a similar kind of a career with his athleticism and speed. That's the game that you would model yourself after in Ndamukong Suh. But so Vita's role was a little different. I think Vita needs to be in the backfield more, and that will be kind of I think if Cansey really takes off, one of the two between Vea and Cansey, almost every passing down is going to have his hand near the quarterback. One of the two, and then if the outside pass rush is working, then you're looking at this 3-4 that could really be something.
3-4-headed monster.
Yes.
You know what I love about that makeup, though, of the guys you just mentioned, is that you've got the young guys with Cansey, of course, and Yaya Diaby, and then of course you have a veteran leader like Vita Vea in there as well. And we can't not mention. I think the guy who finished second in sacks last year, second or third, was Winfield.
Yeah, as a safety.
Who, by the way, we haven't had our episodes since that massive deal for him. So what is it? Highest paid
defensive back, I think. Not just safety. I think DB and
defensive back ever
in total.
Yes.
So Todd Bowles has some interesting names on the depth chart on the defensive side of the ball, which is obviously extraordinary news. And before we look at this, I want to bring up the schedule because that's another recent development since our last episode of Bucs Bonus. And before I do, though, any other small bottom of the notebook footnotes on minicamp that you guys observed?
It was hard. It's hard to watch because when you're in, as they say, t-shirt and shorts, you're not really getting a glimpse.
Everybody looks great.
Of everything. I think the getting used to not seeing Devin White out there and seeing KJ Britt lining up next, what will be Levante David, because those guys didn't get a chance to really line up with each other through this camp. So seeing that develop, I think, is going to be a big part of the training camp equation. But coming out of mini camp, Apparently, the defensive backs played well when they got into situations that we weren't allowed to watch. But so this defensive backfield, I think, is going to be much improved. Going to have to, because it was this team got picked apart by opponents' passing games, and it wasn't overall. It was at the worst times. And Bucs fans, you know the times, you know the games when they happen, late in games, not being able to hold leads. I've said it earlier on air. Houston Texans game will live. That one they call that a scar.
In infamy.
Yes, that's a scar on last year's team. The way that Houston game ended, because the Bucs went down the field and took the lead, and the job was done. Well, apparently
I remember that one.
Apparently it wasn't done.
Not so much. I'm going to go with the rookie class. We heard Todd Bowles mention it towards the end of minicamp there. He said this was one of the smartest rookie classes he's ever worked with. And obviously you start with Graham Barton, who's a Duke alum. I grew up a Duke basketball fan and pretty good academics over there, I would say.
Graham's a Dookie from Nashville.
He's a Dookie from Nashville. But other guys as well. Jalen McMillan, we've heard him make some really big plays. The portions, again, that we didn't really get to watch or at least record. And then another pass rusher we didn't mention, Chris Braswell. The young man from Alabama, the outside linebacker who some of his defensive teammates have spoke very highly of, at least in terms of his athleticism and his ability.
Tyke Smith.
Tyke Smith, another guy as well. So and Bucky Irving. So excited to see that rookie class, see what they can do.
I like Bucky.
He's exciting, man.
As a multi, just a super versatile weapon potentially. That could be kind of cool if he can find success.
I think he will be able to. Is that the change of pace, third down back? He's never going to be the every down back kind of guy, because I don't know if you saw, I did a one-on-one with him recently. I'm about 5'11 and a half, 6 foot on a good day.
You're towering.
He's a solid 5'9". I think he's listed at 5'9", and I believe that's about right. He's on the shorter side.
Yeah, but Darren Sproles is knocking on.
Oh
the,
yeah,
on
no,
the
absolutely.
door,
There's a role for him.
That's a high comp, I know.
Yeah.
But
it's a legend.
the proof that you can be a small guy and
absolutely
make it in the NFL. Some guy who isn't all that small but has one of the biggest voices in the entire WFLA newsroom. Yeah, he actually works for us. He's a
back.
WFLA employee.
He's back.
He is back.
He finally recovered from that playoff game.
On line one, Buckified Bert.
Hello, JB. This is Buckified Bert, and I'm so happy to be a part of Bucs Bonus once again, 2024. I cannot tell you how excited I am about the Buccaneers getting ready to take on the season and everything, because I was so right last year thinking that the Bucs was going to go back to back to back. It happened, just like I said, and we was 2 games away from the Super Bowl. And so, but this year, Baker Mayfield is not playing for $4 million this year. He's playing for $100 million, and that's gonna make us. When somebody get paid more money, they do better. And I like what we did in the draft and everything. I tell you what, we addressed all sections that I know we needed, and the linebacker, as well as Bucky, especially this Bucky guy, Bucky Irvin, out of Oregon. That guy is another Barry Sanders. That's what I say. But this year, get ready, because the Buccaneers are going back to back to back to back. And no, it can't nobody stop us. Atlanta wanted our Baker Mayfield, but Baker wouldn't go to Atlanta for even $150 million. He took $100 million from us, and a little bit of incentive and everything. It adds up to $115 million. But Baker Mayfield is back. Mike Evans is back. The Buccaneers are fired up, ready to go. And I need to just tweak my outfit just a little bit. I got the other parts coming in July. It'll be ready to go. So I can't wait. I'm telling you right now, JB, get ready. Everybody. All right, this is Buckified Bert. I'm out. Thank you.
Man, Bert, look, there's a reason why
nobody commands the landline like Buckified Bert.
Our lone caller in.
Right.
What's funny? We don't include him on the schedule segment of the show, because if Albert was in here, he would go win. That's right. As we were talking before the show, he would just every game's a win.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little bit more of an objective approach here as we look at the 2024-2025 Buccaneers schedule here on Bucs Bonus. Of course, the schedule release is a huge deal now, right? When the schedule drops and then it leaks out, and who gets this number of nationally televised games and so on and so forth. Here we have the Bucs opening up at home against the former Washington football team. Now, temporarily, as I understand it, the Commanders are going to undergo a name change, I think, at some point, according to what owners decide to do there in Washington. But they are the Commanders, at least for this season, and they are the first game at Raymond James Stadium. Guys, just your notes, your feedback as you look here at the schedule. Tough, easy, middle of the line, anything that jumps out to you, Dan. Why don't we start with you?
Well, when you looked last year, for instance, they had a potential to get off to a decent start. Then they had a very difficult stretch. Kind of similar here in that you got, I think they win week 1 for sure. Week 2 is very difficult on the road. And then you get into the meat of the schedule, and we're working our way to that gauntlet of the Ravens. I'll put the Saints in there away, too.
Away
at the Superdome.
Yeah.
And the Falcons away. Ravens. Falcons again twice in 3 weeks. Then KC and the 49ers back-to-back before that bye week. That is absolutely brutal. And what I see when I look at this is if it doesn't go that well and they get to the bye week, and I don't know, I can't count the games. If they have a losing record at the bye week, they can still go on a run when they come back because it lightens up a lot on the backside there. Very difficult game at Dallas right before Christmas Day. But if this team needs a win, they can reel off 4 or 5 here on the backside for sure. So, yeah, that's going to be just a murderer's row, October and November. This team's going to find out what it's made of, and that's the part of the season last year that did not go so great.
Welcoming in San Francisco into town, and they
Some
are
tough home games.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Kenny, what jumps off to you?
I mean, you mentioned the San Francisco game. I know Dan was talking about the back end. You got a chance to win a couple more if the middle stretch is tough for you. But even that backstretch, you mentioned the Cowboys game on the road, back-to-back Cowboys and Chargers, which, by the way, Chargers were now with Jim Harbaugh at the helm, but still, obviously, Justin Herbert, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, so that is no means a gimme as well. And I mean, still, I know the Saints are at home, but it's a rivalry game. We know things can get weird with rivalry games. You need to at least, I'd say, go 3-2 your first 5. I feel 4-2 your first 6. The Lions game is going to be tough, but I feel like everything else that lines up pretty well for the most part.
I now look at last year when the Eagles came up right around the same.
Do you still feel good about that?
Same week in the schedule. I look at it as a win at home.
Right. I feel like the Eagles, I don't know why, but Nick Sirianni, it feels like a little bit of a dead man walking. I mean, that was just such a poor performance in the playoffs, and they didn't really make any great moves, unless you want to include
bringing Devin White.
Unless you want to include the acquisition of Devin White. Other than that, it's pretty much the same Eagles team you saw from a year ago. Denver no longer. They decided they didn't want to cook with Russ anymore. They moved on from him. Commanders, you got a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Really, the Lions game is the one that stands out the first 6.
The Falcons are the trendy pick in the NFC South from a lot of the national media. So
still not sold with them.
That's the stretch. They play them twice. It's in less than a month. So they're getting 2 of those games out of the way early. The return game, which by the way, last year they lost that game to Atlanta on a last drive. The Falcons kicked a field goal to win it.
I was here. I was in the stands. I
Part
remember.
of the reason the
passing
passing defense needed to be tweaked. But so I think that the Falcons series will be difficult. The Falcons are picked by many to win the division for a reason. So they're not. This is not an easy. Can't just say, oh, this starts when they play the Saints. No, it starts with that game in Atlanta in October 3rd. And remember, the division games count as 2. In the standings, so if you lose those games, you've got to do some digging later in the season and have that team lose at some point to get that game back. So you do your best to try and win all those division games.
I know we're looking at this from a win and loss perspective and how tough it's going to be for the Bucs. I look at this schedule and I just see like pure raw NFL entertainment because this schedule has a lot of just awesome games. I mean, Dan, you noted earlier, the Lions were a pushover years back. They're not. They're one of the best teams in football now. The Falcons all of a sudden are probably the chief division rival, and of course you have them in an 8:15 game. I forget if that's Sunday or Monday Night Football, or is that actually a
That's
Thursday?
a Thursday
night.
Thursday night,
game.
yeah.
You have Lamar Jackson and the Ravens coming into town. You go into Arrowhead. You also play the Niners, who are one of the biggest brands in football, and go to face Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers, and then you go into Dallas. A lot of really great games. So Buccaneer fans, if you have season tickets, if you're ready, I mean, this is just a great entertainment schedule. Now, it's tough. That Murderer's Row, Dan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, all the way through to the bye is brutal. If you're talking about that stretch, I mean, how many wins are you truly? You're trying to get out at like 500, right? I mean,
I would
if
say
you're being realistic,
1, 2,
Absolutely.
3, 4, 5, 6 games. I mean, if you win 3 of them, you've done a great job.
Yeah.
You've done a great
Agreed.
job. The Ravens game, 8:15 day of the week. That's
That
a Monday
Monday?
night. It's
It's
a
the
Monday
Monday
night, I
nighter.
believe. The last time the Ravens were here in prime time, if you remember how that game went, the Bucs defense was terrific in the first half, and then then John Harbaugh just turned Lamar loose with his legs in the second half, and he just ran all over the defense. It was night and day. And then by the end of the night, the Bucs looked like they didn't even belong on the field with the Ravens, who I still consider to be one of the elite in the AFC. So I'm curious to see how they fare this year against them, and also obviously Kansas City, the Super Bowl champions. But you're getting a taste of, and you could be seeing, if you do in fact get to the Super Bowl, you're going to get a look at possibly your opponent in the Super Bowl here between one of those two teams for sure.
and I know this is crazy talk, and you guys are the football experts, and I'm the guy who presses the buttons, but there's no way the Panthers are that bad again, right? I mean, the expectation is that at least Bryce Young is a little bit better,
Yeah.
and Dave Canales is an upgraded
I think
head coach.
I would agree with that.
So maybe not necessarily a threat to the Buccaneers, but tougher than.
Yeah, I mean, what did they win last year? 2 games? What did they go last year?
I think you're right. 2 games.
I think 2 games. I can't imagine them doing that again. I would think you'd get to at least 5 or 6 wins.
Right.
Like you said, I think Bryce Young could take that next step forward. I also think didn't exactly get dealt the best hand last year. Didn't have a ton of weapons to work with. I don't think their offensive line was particularly good. And they fired I believe he was fired mid-season, right?
Right.
Their old head coach. So I like Dave Canales. I think he'll do a decent job year 1. But I still, they're going to finish dead last in the division.
And but here's the danger. When we get excited about the schedule release, is for me, it's when do you play your division opponents? You're getting the Falcons out of the way in the first half of the season. The Panthers games are both stacked there towards the back end.
Mm-hmm.
If Bryce Young improves each week under Dave Canales,
That's an excellent point.
you're going to get a much better
Could be hitting
Bryce
his stride
Young.
by then.
Yeah, if they played the Carolina, put them in that Eagles slot, that might be a completely different game than you might see in December. And I think that the consensus is if the Bucs aren't careful, they're looking at a split with Carolina.
I mean, last year,
This year.
didn't they come close to the very end of the
They had to pull
the
out the
regular
game.
season,
They had to
right?
pull out the game here.
And then in Carolina as well, got very,
Right.
very close too,
Yes.
right? A couple field goals, that was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
I love that observation because you're talking about Dave Canales being the so-called quarterback whisperer of the league, working miracles with Geno Smith, working miracles with Baker. Is he going to be able to make it a trifecta in Carolina with Bryce Young? But if he's better over the course of the season, December games against the Panthers, one at the very beginning of the month, one at the very end of the month.
It's intriguing for sure.
As we end out our episode here of Bucs Bonus, a final storyline that I think is absolutely worth mentioning is, of course, the current situation regarding one of the best tackles in football, Tristan Wirfs, who did not participate in a practice capacity at Bucs mandatory minicamp. Of course, he is in a bit of a contract stalemate with the Bucs. Guys, what are you hearing? Is there optimism there? Winfield got his deal. He got his bag, as they say it, right?
Exactly.
So is Tristan Wirfs going to get his bag? Where do things stand there?
Well, I kind of feel like there's a little bit of good faith in the background behind closed doors going on that maybe all parties are interested in his keeping his health intact, because everyone else who has entered this situation, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield himself last year, Antoine Winfield, played through this type of scenario and got that contract on the backside of it, which I think Wirfs would do, even if he doesn't have a deal in place by the time training camp gets here. But I just feel like, we've had recent, like the Ryan Jensen designation for his retirement freed up money on the cap. I think these little million here and million there is being put in place to get a deal done. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic that something gets done before training camp with Tristan. But I can tell you this, he's been at the facility. He hasn't been absent, didn't leave town. He's working out. He's with the guys. I'm pretty sure he's sitting in on meetings and getting this offense on, soaked in as much as he can. But, I think all parties want to get this done and just get it put in the rearview mirror. And Jason Light has vacation plans coming up. I believe he was on a radio show. I think he's going to Machu Picchu right before camp, and I don't think he wants to take any calls down there in South America.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No, you want to enjoy your vacation.
Right,
you don't want to
exactly.
think about work.
Exactly. No. That's why. So this is for this man's vacation. Get this done.
Absolutely.
Get it done.
I think, like you said, the fact that he was there, that he was present. I know he didn't practice, but he was there. We saw him every day. I'm assuming we heard other, offensive linemen, some of the rookies and the teammates said he was, interacting with them, working out with them, all the good stuff. I agree with you. I think they'll get a deal done, and they need to get a deal done. This is one of, if not the most talented tackle in the league. I know we just saw a couple other guys, like I believe Penei Sewell got a huge deal recently with the Detroit Lions. Tristan Wirfs will likely, and deservedly so, earn around the same bag that he did. The numbers escape me now, but he is going to be a very highly paid man, as he should be, and it will be with the Bucs.
And remember, if this window is 2 seasons minimum of where they think this team is, you can't have a piece like that. Depart.
No, that's
Absolutely
a cornerstone piece.
Right.
You need Tristan Wirfs.
Right. And one more thing. I'm sorry, JB. One other thing is, this hasn't played out in a nasty fashion like you've seen some of these things, barbs here and there, a comment on a radio show taken out of context. We haven't seen any of that. So that's what leads me to believe that everybody's at least kind of aiming in the right direction.
No, and that's a great point, because I feel like it was just a year ago, Dan, we were on this very program talking about how things were a little bit more awkward with Devin White's situation and things that, where he, of course, was looking to get paid, and the Buccaneers expressed, obviously, their hesitancies. And so it's good to know that obviously there isn't that sort of that nasty business side that is making things a little bit trickier for Tristan Wirfs, who clearly is a championship caliber offensive tackle in the NFL. I'll mention a name here to just throw in my 2 cents on the Tristan Wirfs situation. Someone get Pat McAfee on the program or on the show, because Antoine Winfield and Jason Light was on Pat's show.
Yeah.
And was asked about Antoine Winfield. And then there was this, I forget what he said, but there was this optimism that the deal was going to get done, Dan. And it kind of materialized on the Pat McAfee show, and then it was just a couple of days later, boom, the announcement
within
that Winfield
hours.
Within hours, it was done. So if we see Jason Light or Tristan Wirfs on the Pat McAfee show, I feel like we're feeling
it's a sign to like right when they announce a new pope, you see the white smoke. it's that, but the Pat McAfee show and Jason Light making an appearance.
Exactly.
Ah, man, a Pope reference to end out the show. Can we hear it for our guy Kenny Morales, his very first Bucs bonus episode?
Thank you.
Great to have him on the show as we punch up Slider Cam here. It's so great to, of course, have our Bucs Insiders, Dan Lucas, Kenny Morales here with us. Of course, Bucs Bonus is the exclusive podcast of your official Bucs station, News Channel 8. Catch all of their reporting on your NBC station here in Tampa Bay, WFLA News Channel 8, and all their reporting on WFLA.com. You might be seeing more of the boys here because Eileen's heading to Paris for the Summer Olympics. You guys, any envy there? Jealousy? Come on, be honest. Eileen's not here.
I am a little bit. I've been to Paris once, but it was only for literally like a day or two.
I'm thinking that during the Olympic Games, you can't exactly just camp out at a cafe on the Champs-Elysees.
I don't think we'll see. I don't think we'll see many Instagram stories of Eileen hanging out under the Eiffel Tower sipping some wine.
Casually breaking off each layer of a beignet.
I'm having fromage fromage on the Seine.
Omelette du fromage.
Yes, exactly.
She's gonna be working. I don't know what the French word is for working, but Eileen's gonna be busting it. And as such, she's obviously the consummate pro. We wish her the best as she covers the summer games in Paris. We're covering all things Bucs here on WFLA.com. Monthly episodes of Bucs Bonus in the off season, and then of course as the season ramps up, we have weekly episodes from the Stream Center, and you can find it all on WFLA.com. Oh, last minute mention. Yeah, WFLA.com. You can get, of course, key takeaways from minicamp as the Buccaneers prepare for training camp the upcoming season. That is the article posted by our own Casey Sloan. You can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com where you can read more, and you'll catch myself, Kenny, Dan, Eileen, the Bucs Bonus team, including Buckified Bert, on future installments of Bucs Bonus, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Thanks for joining us here from the Stream Center. We'll see you next time. As always, go Bucs.